Lesson 12: External threats and types of security threats. External threats: the growing uncertainties that lie in the regional and global milieu make up six second dimension of our national security environment. Even as threat of external aggression against our country remains in the remote horizon. First, the multilateral dispute over Spratly Islands is a source of intermittent tensions, owing to the building of structures believed to be military-oriented by some claimant countries in the area. This is a clear encroachment into the Philippine EEZ, or the Exclusive Economic Zone, which is met through a comprehensive package of diplomatic measures. This multilateral territorial dispute of countries for Spratly Islands is between the Philippines, Malaysia, China, Taiwan, Brunei, and Vietnam. These may include into the invasion of Philippine territory the Scarborough Shoal of the Chinese men. Second, the smuggling of firearms and contraband, illegal migration, and the occasional movement of foreign terrorists through the porous borders of our southwestern frontier, or the Palawan, the Philippines' last frontier and Malaysia-Philippines border, have elicited transnational police organizations bilaterally and multilaterally to check these activities. The terrorists are the Maute Group, Abu Sayyaf Group, Bangsamoro Eastern Freedom Fighters, and the Ansar Khalifa Philippines. Third, the lingering effects of the currency crisis affecting the countries within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN, are cause of regional anxieties, which tend to aggravate political instabilities and socio-economic dislocation involving the poorest peoples. Asian financial currency crisis is caused by the collapse of the currency exchange of the countries. This may cause severe economic and political problems and financial problems for the poorest people of the Philippines. Fourth, the serious economic disparity between rich and poor nations keeps the world in a state of instability and visually on the brink of war and invasions in many places. Local or regional shortages of fresh water, arable land, food, fisheries, and energy fuels are only causing tensions. By this, people of the oppressed country might fear the foreign rich people. Fifth, ethnic, religious, and cultural conflicts pervade many regions and nations, including our own. It is constantly exacerbated by mass poverty, limited access to resources, denial of human rights, lack of national integration, and international issues. The conflict is usually not about ethnic differences themselves but over political, economic, social, cultural, or territorial matters. The proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, or WMD, is a threat to global security. Nuclear materials and technologies are more accessible now than at any other time in history. The relative ease of production of both chemical and biological weapons has made these weapons attractive to terrorists. So, hindi lang siya sa terrorists nakakaapekto kasi most of the country na may mga nuclear bomb or nuclear materials ay iniiwasan ng ibang bansang makaaway dahil nga sa danger na maaaring itong i-cause. 7. Transnational organized crime and has proliferated in the era of globalization. The International Monetary Fund estimates that global drug trafficking accounts for 2% of the world economy, excluding illicit capital flight and money laundering activity. Transnational criminals have been one of the biggest beneficiaries of globalization. It makes them commit a crime more easily. Countries' industry is greatly affected, and official structures vulnerable to corruption increases the potential danger for money laundering and drug trafficking. 8. Natural disasters and environment issues will continue to pervade the global security agenda. Mankind's global activities, particularly population growth, resource consumption, pollution, urbanization, industrialization, desertification, and deforestation, will increasingly impact climate and weather patterns, strain fragile ecosystems, and put more pressure on health and social support systems. This might really affect the financial stability and economic growth of the country because of the destruction of properties and for the relief goods at pagsaayos muli ng mga establishmento. Cybernetic crime is a growing global threat as experienced with computer viruses such as Melissa and Carnival, which have attacked isolated or network information systems through the internet or through software carriers and devices. Cybercrime falls into individual, property, and government. A crime against the government is also known as cyberterrorism. Government cybercrime includes hacking government websites, military websites, or distributing propaganda. These criminals are usually terrorists or enemy government of other nations. They may also commit cybercrimes to advance an ideological agenda. Types of security threats. The following are the types of security threats that could be minimized by having good citizenship values and commitment to support and act on issues related to national security and concerns. Rebellion or insurrection is an open, armed, and organized resistance against a constituted authority. It includes a range of behavior from civil disobedience and mass nonviolent resistance to violence. It attempts to destroy and establish authorities such as the government. It is committed by rising publicly and taking arms against the government for the purpose of removing from the allegiance to said government for its laws. Kapag ang isang tao ay armado at have disvalorant behavior towards the government or sa mga establishmento or sa mga public places, tinatawag na silang mga rebelde. Terrorism is the systemic use of terror especially as a means of coercion. It refers only to those violent acts which are intended to create fear or terror, are are perpetrated for an ideological goal, and deliberately target specific people or disregarded the safety of non-combatant civilians. It is a crime under the Union Security Act of 2007 which describes such acts as causing widespread and extraordinary fear and panic among the populace. Crime applies to a measurable degree of damage or destruction up to and including a state beyond or repair, or it may indicate a state wherein such as damage is occurring and continuing. Something being destroyed is in a state of destruction such as self-destruction, s- uh, such as self-destructive behaviors, suicide, and demolition. Self-destructive behavior is very harmful towards the person who have this behavior. It may also affect the person's surroundings. Most of the people who engage this behavior are students or teenagers. This could greatly affect the psychological thinking of the people. Murder is defined in most countries as the unlawful killing of another human being with intent or malice, and generally, this state of mind distinguishes murder from other forms of homicide. This might be caused of inflicted as a result of domestic disputes, interpersonal violence, violent conflicts over land resources, inter-gang violence over theft or control, and predatory violence and killing by armed groups. Hijacking or highway robbery is the crime or taking of or attempting to take something of value by force or threat of force, and by putting the victim in fear. In common law, robbery is defined as taking the property of another with the intent to permanently deprive the person of that property by means of force or fear. Robbery differs from simple theft in its use of violence and intimidation. Most of the robbery cases happen in crowded places or sa mga tahimik at di mataong lugar. Most of the hijacking robbery happened in Manila, wherein talamak ang magnanakaw na kahit nakaupo ka lang sa mga jeep or bus ay hindi ka pa rin talaga safe sa mga magnanakaw. Last is kidnapping and serious illegal detention is the taking away or transportation of a person against the person's will, usually to hold the person in false imprisonment. a confinement without legal authority. This may be done for ransom or in furtherance of another crime or in connection with the child custody dispute.